Hi everyone, my name is Jess Ponting. I'm the Director of the Center for Surf Research at San Diego State University, and I'm also the co-founder of Stoked Certified, which is the first sustainability certification program specifically for surf tourism resorts and also for surfing destinations. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for asking me to participate in the workshop on sustainable destination management. I really wish I could be with everybody there. I can't. I have a brand new baby girl to look after. So here's my presentation all the way from sunny California. Today I'm going to talk about Stoked Certified, and a particular direction on this I'm going to take is to look at millennial demand for sport and surf tourism in particular, and what sustainability certifications that are specifically targeting the surf niche and other sport tourism niches, how they can help to drive millennial demand for these particular types of sport tourism. So the millennial generation, that is those born approximately between 1980 and the year 2000, are rapidly becoming the most important generation in terms of tourism demand. They currently represent 80 million people in the United States and spend $200 billion a year on leisure and recreation pursuits. They will spend $10 trillion over their lifetime in these areas, and they spend 11% more than other generations on leisure. They will represent 50% of the US workforce by 2020 and 75% by 2025. Many forms of sport tourism find themselves in the midst of a generational transition that is not working out particularly well for them. Millennials in the snow sport industry are not replacing boomers who are aging out of these sports. For example, in 1974, there were about 12 million skiers in the United States, representing 53 million skier visits each year. 40 years later, there are just 13 million skiers, and their visits totaled 53.6 million visits a year. So there's been very little growth over a 40-year period in a time when you've seen the population grow significantly. 40 years ago, about 5.5% of the US population participated in snow sports. Today, only 4% of people ski or snowboard. Snowboarding is down 28% in the last 10 years. Skiing is down 10%. On top of this, Generation Y, the millennial generation, only spend half as many days on the mountain each year as the baby boomers who are aging out of the sport did in the past. Generation Y, millennials, tend to spend 5 days a year. The boomers would spend 10 days a year on average. So this means that you need 2 millennials to replace one baby boomer who is aging out of snow sports. Millennials are not replacing boomers who are aging out of the game of golf either. The US lost 20% of its golf players in the past 10 years. In 2013, 400,000 players dropped out of the sport, and 50% of those were millennials. What about surfing? Well, there are many industry reports and recreation and leisure organisation reports showing that participation rates in surfing continue to grow. However, there is evidence of declining interest on a broader scale in the sport. 2 of the original big 3 surfing companies, started in the late 1960s and early 1970s, filed for bankruptcy in the last 2 years in the form of Quicksilver and Billabong. 2 of the major surfing magazines in the United States were shut down in the same period, Trans World Surf and Surfing Magazine. Now, another way to approach this, and it certainly has its flaws as a research tool, but we can look at the trends in Google searches over time. And here is a look at the Google searches for surfing from 2004 to the present time. And you can see that interest appears to be waning. Now you may see a fairly significant spike there towards the end of September in 2015. It might be interesting to speculate on what this was. Why was there a sudden surge of interest? This was in fact when Mick Fanning was attacked by a great white shark during the final of the Jeffreys Bay Open that year. So that caused a surge of interest which rapidly waned. We can overlay this with the trend in Google searches for snowboarding over time. You can see that the base level for snowboarding is lower than that of surfing, but it has significant peaks during the winter time and particularly when the Winter Olympics are in play. Skiing has a higher base level than snowboarding, lower than surfing, but its peaks are extremely high during the winter time. Let's overlay golf. A much higher base level, but again very seasonal, and you can see that those seasons are the opposite of the snow season, so most people choosing to search for golf during the summertime, fairly obviously. But the overall trend in all of these forms of sport which drive sport tourism is downward. Despite this downward trend, evidenced by the Google searches since 2004, surfing participation rates do seem to be firm. There are around 35 million surfers in the world. It's projected, in 2012 it was projected that by 2020 there would be 47 million surfers worldwide. Well, let's see how that pans out. The 35 million figure has been around for a while. In the United States, there are 5.3 million surfers if you include stand-up paddleboarders. And these are 2014 numbers produced by the Outdoor Foundation, a non-profit organisation that looks at outdoor recreation. The global surf industry, inclusive of manufacturing, wholesaling, retailing, travel, media, was estimated by O'Brien and Eddy in 2013 to be worth between 70 and 130 billion globally. And that is those are some pretty wide goalposts, but it depends on the kinds of assumptions that you make. There are 100 member countries of the International Surfing Association, and surfing will be in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. So this is a very significant player in the world. In the United States, surfing is America's fourth favorite youth outdoor activity, based on 4.4 million outdoor recreation outings for people aged between 6 and 24, produced by the Outdoor Foundation in 2015. So surfing ranks fourth after running, jogging and trail running, bicycling and skateboarding. And the reason that it ranks so highly is that the people who do surf do it a lot. It's not like they only do it once a month. They will spend a lot of time surfing, and that really elevated surfing's rank in this list. The average American surfer is 34 years old, highly educated, earns $75,000 a year, owns 4 surfboards, surfs for 2.5 hours, 108 times a year, so roughly twice a week, and spends between $40 and $100 every time they surf, injecting between $2 and $5 billion into local economies around the coasts of the United States. This surfing population is also hypermobile. 91% of them have undertaken surf travel in the past 5 years. 40% have taken more than 10 surf trips in the last 5 years, and 20% more than 21 surf trips in the last 5 years. A recent study out of Oxford University showed that high quality surfing waves can be shown to boost economic activity. This was done by analysing the amount of nighttime light, which is now being used as an indicator of economic development. Using this methodology, it was projected that 18 to 25 million US dollars are generated per surf break per year, totaling $50 billion globally in economic activity driven by high quality surf breaks. Newly accessed surf breaks tend to grow, the economic growth in that area is at around 3%, according to this study from Oxford University. The economic impacts of surfing and surf travel have been calculated at a wide variety of destinations around the world. The Gold Coast in Australia estimates that it makes $820 million a year from surf tourism alone. Trestles in California calculated this to be $45 million, Mavericks $23.8, Stradbroke Island in Australia $20 million a year, Uluwatu in Bali, just one break on the Bukit Peninsula, which is home to many surf breaks, generates $8.4 million a year, Pleasure Point, California $8.4 million, Pichilemu in Chile $8 million, and Mundaka in Spain was calculated to generate $4.5 million a year. The Vans Triple Crown of Surfing, which is a 12-day event in Hawaii, generates $20.9 million. So surfing has a very significant economic impact. Despite growing academic interest in surfing and surf tourism, the research is still quite limited, particularly in terms of specialised surf tourism lodging and surfing destinations. The surf tourism industry really only began in the late 1970s and only became significant in the 1990s. The image here is of the first ever specifically built surf tourism lodging at Garajangan in East Java in Indonesia, which was built in 1979. So let's change direction a little bit and talk about the millennials and what all of this means in the context of millennials and what their preferences are, and second homes. It's about experience and adventure. They think differently about sustainability as well. They care more about the environment, but don't call them environmentalists. They don't want to be labelled that way. But they do care. They are 76% more focused on the environment than their parents. They want progress and have been described as catalysing a clean label trend for transparency across all kinds of consumer products and service provision. Authenticity is key for the millennials. 68% of them are sceptical of sustainability claims made by the tourism industry, and they will boycott companies if they feel deceived by them on their sustainability claims. So knowing that millennials are the key market for the future of sport tourism lodging, what are the attitudes of millennial surf tourists to sustainability, and how do they relate to previous generations? Can sustainability be leveraged to drive millennial demand for surf tourism lodging in surfing destinations? Now, my aim today is to answer these questions and explore its application through a case study of Stoked Certified, which I've mentioned before, is the first sustainability certification to specifically target surfing resorts and surfing destinations. So the methodology here was an online survey conducted in 2015. This was a snowball sample that utilised social media to propagate the survey. You can see the flyer that was sent around here. Participants were incentivised to participate by going into a draw to win a free Firewire surfboard of their own choice. Over 3,000 people participated from 68 countries. The majority of respondents were from the United States, Australia, France, Germany, the UK and Spain. The average respondent, 80% of them were male. They were 34 years old with more than 10 years of experience. They surf 3 times a week, own 4 surfboards, make $75,000 a year. Almost 3/4 of them are predominantly shortboard riders. To break down the numbers by generation, you can see that we had 43% of respondents were millennials, 49% were Generation X, and a smaller number were baby boomers, so age 55 and older, roughly 8%. But still large enough numbers in all 3 categories to be useful for our analysis. Now, one of the things we did was to ask participants to rank the importance of these elements of a surf tourism trip. And what was really interesting were these. After wave quality, cost and crowding, the destination culture, a pristine natural environment, and the sustainability of the travel business were the next three most important elements of a trip for these participants, ahead of safety, how long it takes to travel there, the quality of the accommodation, whether the surf break was well known, and whether surf guiding services were available. So this was pretty interesting. Now, a number of other questions were analysed and the results broken down across generation. I'm going to move through these fairly quickly, but what is noteworthy is that in almost every case, Generation Y, the millennials, were more concerned about sustainability and more prepared to do something about it than Generation X and baby boomers. So on average, 83.5% of the surf market was concerned about sustainability and surf tourism. This was 87% amongst Generation Y. 96% thought that surf travel businesses should be responsible for the environments in which they operate, again higher in Generation Y. 94% said that surf travel businesses should support local communities where they operate. And this was the same on average across the board, but if you look more closely at the results across the 5-point Likert scale, you see that in terms of strongly agree, the millennials are ahead by several percentage points of their generational peers. 91.5% of respondents thought that surf travel businesses should be undertaking sustainability initiatives. Again, Generation Y ahead by several percentage points, and if you look at this between the strongly agree and agree, you see that the millennials are ahead here even further. 83.5% look to be a sustainable surf traveller when they are travelling. Generation Y, the millennials, are significantly ahead here on average by 8.5%, but again, if you look at the strongly agree, it's almost a 10 percentage point advantage to Generation Y and the millennials. In terms of researching sustainability of surf tourism businesses in the past, 41% of respondents said that they had done this, that they have already researched the sustainability of surf tourism businesses that they've used. If you look at this across the board, Generation Y, the millennials, 11 percentage points ahead on average. In terms of researching the sustainability of surf tourism businesses in the future, 71.5% of respondents said yes, and again, almost 10 percentage points higher for Generation Y. Will sustainability influence the choice of surf tourism business in the future? On average, 69% said yes, almost 10 percentage points higher for Generation Y. We're starting to detect a pattern here. Would you choose a certified sustainable surf resort over one not certified if price and amenities were equal? 91.3% of people said yes, 5 percentage points higher for Gen Y than Gen X. The willingness to pay a certain percentage above non-certified resort prices, 33% were willing to pay more than 10% above an average price for a demonstrably certified sustainable resort. You see a couple of percentage points higher for Generation Y. Interestingly, the boomers came through here as well. Perhaps they have more disposable income and are prepared to spend it. So the study suggests that there does seem to be a case for sustainability certification in the surf travel lodging sector and for surfing destinations in general, and that millennials seem to be particularly receptive to this. Now, Stoked Certified is going after this market in a focused way. Stoked Certified began in 2011. A former student of mine, an intern with the Centre for Surf Research, helped me to develop the original certification standard based on the global sustainable tourism criteria, and upon graduation decided to turn this into a business and asked me if I would join him in that endeavour, and I decided to do that. STOKE is an acronym, Sustainable Tourism Operators Kit for Evaluation, and it's specific to the surf and snow sectors. So we've developed standards for resorts, and we have a event standard. We have a standard for destinations at the level of cities and multiple resorts, and we are working on a surf park standard as well. We have 12 resorts in 6 countries and 1 surf and 1 snow destination now currently in the pilot phase. Mainstream tourism certifications haven't really penetrated consumer consciousness. They have little impact on general tourism demand, but there is a niche that is influenced by sustainability labeling. Mainstream certifications tend to be interested in resorts that have 100 rooms or more, or hotels that have 100 rooms or more, or in international hotel chains where they can sign up multiple properties with very large turnover, and they can guarantee cost savings. They have a relatively small percentage, in the realm of 6 to 8% in terms of efficiencies gained when sustainability certifications are implemented, and this means a lot when you are talking hundreds of millions of dollars. When you're talking about a surf resort, which is almost always small, between 8 and 20 rooms on average, in fragile coastal areas, in remote rural areas of less developed countries, and often adjacent to indigenous communities who are often in cultural decline with very real economic development issues, this becomes less appealing for these mainstream certifications who are really looking to sign up lots of members to do this efficiently and make a lot of money out of it. So there is a gap here for certifications who are interested in outcomes rather than maximizing profit. There is a market penetration advantage in choosing this kind of niche certification. Mainstream certifications are trying to market these to the entire world who may stay at a hotel. It's very difficult to access them in a meaningful way and to communicate with them in a way that feels authentic and that resonates. The global surfing population is rather less diffuse than that of the broader travelling public. Our survey showed that 61% of surfers visit surf forecasting websites at least once daily, 85% visit them at least weekly, and 88% of millennials visit these sites at least once a week. Stoked Certified has been mentioned or featured in articles in 4 articles on these websites. So the opportunity is there to reach the vast majority of the global surfing public through a relatively small number of key websites and publications. The World Surf League is also a way to access much of the world surfing population. For example, the Billabong Pro Tahiti in 2014, which saw very big surf and it was a great competition, broke a lot of internet records in terms of sporting event views. 58 million people watched it on Facebook. The webcast was viewed by 1.9 million and 12 million people watched it on television broadcast around the world. As of September 8th, 2017, the World Surf League has almost 6.5 million likes on Facebook. The estimated global audience of the World Surf League is 125 million. So being able to leverage this platform could be a real way to penetrate that market. And we do that with Stoked Certified. We have member resorts in Hawaii and Fiji that have hosted World Surf League contests. So the Turtle Bay Resort in Hawaii, which is currently on hiatus from Stoked Certified but was previously a certified member, is the host resort of the Triple Crown of Surfing. The Tavarua Resort in Fiji is host to the Fiji Pro. Now, in Fiji, a couple of years ago, an announcement was made during the quarterfinals of the event, which is being broadcast to millions of online viewers. And this is the graphic that came up on the screen, and Ronnie Blakey read through this to the audience, and Stoke was introduced to an audience of millions in the surfing world. So these are the advantages of having a tightly focused niche. In terms of the other forms of surf media, there have been three major magazine articles in 2016 written about Stoked and Stoked certified properties. Stoked Certified was the subject of a popular podcast, The Wire, produced by Firewire Surfboards, one of the world's largest surfboard manufacturers, producing more than 20,000 surfboards a year in 2017. We've also been able to access the market through athlete Instagrams. For example, Kelly Slater, who has almost 2 million Instagram followers, was pictured here holding a co-branded reusable water bottle, Tavarua's logo on one side and Stoked Certified's on the other. In 2016, we did a survey of 600 surfers that found that Stoked had a 20.5% brand recognition, 21.5% amongst millennials. So Stoked is marketing the ability of its brand to reach millennials, particularly with its snow tourism properties. So the idea of a sustainability certification brand that speaks to the millennial generation and speaks to people within this particular niche in a language that is authentic and that has been developed and produced by people who are passionate about these sports is resonating with the market. And these are the kinds of things that we communicate to the ski and snow sports industry about millennials and how Stoked Certified can help them communicate with that generation that isn't coming back to the mountain in the way that they would like them to. And that by embracing a sustainability certification that makes them look more closely at their relationship, not just with the environment, but with the culture of the places that they're operating, this is the kind of innovation that will bring millennials back. So, in conclusion, all the indicators point to millennials being underserved in terms of their desire for more transparently sustainable sport tourism offerings. They research sustainability of surf tourism lodging. They want to choose certified sustainable tourism lodging, and they're prepared to pay more for sustainable surf tourism lodging. So there's certainly potential for sustainability certification to drive millennial demand for sport tourism lodging. More research is needed in this area to assess if attractively branded, legitimately robust and transparent sustainability certification does indeed resonate with millennials, and does it translate into increased sales and or satisfaction. From the business end, we already have qualitative results that show that they are very pleased with the systematic process that Stoked certification lays out for them and achieves certain efficiencies along the way that are providing a return on investment that is certainly worth the money for the participating resorts. We just need to see this translate into the market and be able to quantify that. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found this interesting. Though I'm not there, I'd be pleased to answer any questions you might have by email. Thank you again for asking me to participate.